Australia, I think other places, we call it elephant country strategy. So this is an elephant country. We already know there are giants in there. So it's called elephants because we're hunting for the biggest animal, basically. They're giants. When we've got that, so this is elephant country. Very tame elephants, these. You can see this brave student up here, and that's because these are made of concrete. So they're not real. They look real. And what we do here is we use this sort of approach. So we've got a whole lot of factors on our map. We want, say, this factor. So we've got a granite here. We think that the stress is, so we put a buffer around that, put a boundary around that. We've got something else over here. We put a boundary, and then we look for the areas where 2 intersect or 3 intersect, and this would be our highest priority because all of the factors come together. And of course, we may have, in our analysis, we started off about 15 years ago having 5 or 6 factors, and now we've got about 40. So again, it's very hard. If we're in a first mover, as we're coming into an area like Egypt, for example, very few people have explored here. That's right, isn't it? So we're coming into a new terrain, really. I would say so. When you look at the licences, the whole country isn't covered with licences. If we went to Tanzania, we wouldn't be able to find a piece of ground. Everything would be covered. So we're coming into a new area. We're a fast follower because you've already got one mine, at least, one reasonable sized mine that a big company would be interested in. So here we'd say, okay, here's Egypt. Now, based on various parameters, we think set terrain here would be, or this is the Arabian-Nubian Shield. Egypt's over here. For some reason, we think the Eastern Desert and the northern part of Sudan, the old sort of Upper Egypt area down here would be very good. And then we'd select those areas, and then we look at the data more closely, and we'd say, okay, we can't do that, but if we do it by eye, these areas stand out as complex or whatever else we use. So 2 sorts of approaches. This is where we're in a new terrain and the data aren't so good. Perhaps there aren't good maps or there's not all coverage. These areas usually there's good data, and we can do that. So what we really need is good maps of new terrain. So good maps of Egypt, good maps of the other countries in this area would be extremely useful in exploration. And then what we've got to try and do is make up a series of layers. So these are just made up, but we'd make up some layers. We might put gravity data in there, something that's sort of empirical data. We just put it in and see what happens. And then we have sort of conceptual area. How far are we away from faults? What's the strike of the faults? We could make a map of rheological contrasts, for example. So if you remember back, if we go back a bit to that one. See, I've made it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Instead of, if we had a contact between granophyric dolerite and foliated Monza granite, we could call that a 4. The contrast between 1 and 5 is 4. Or we had a komatiite versus a tholditic basalt, that might be sorry, I'm tired. The contrast, competency contrast, so between a granophyric dolerite and a komatiite, yeah, it would be 4 on this scale, or a tholditic basalt and komatiite would be 3 on this scale. So instead of having geological contacts, we could have contacts with numbers on them, for example. Be one way of doing that. And all sorts of other things we could put into our analysis. And then we can somehow combine all these to try and pick where we want to go.
عنوان
what I'll do is I'll
المراسلات.
show this in a
طيب
I'll
اكتب
show
عندك
this in
58
an area that I
شارع
know well
جمال
where
الدين
there's lots
دويدار.
of data. This is just a simplified map.
شارع
This
جمال
is a
الدين
map we
دويدار
use for stress mapping,
مدينة نصر.
and we use
الدور
this for stress
الثامن شقة
mapping. I'm
8.
just showing the area. So Kalgoorlie is here, for example, on this sort of map.
اوكي
And then we
58.
can. I'm sorry, I know you're speaking quietly, but it's very difficult for me
Okay,
when you're
I'm
speaking.
very sorry.
I just can't concentrate. I'm losing my own plot here.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Don't worry.
But I'm getting tired. Yeah.
اوكي محمد معلش انا هقفل. اوكي
So
هكلمك تاني.
let's look at that area and look at fluid pathway parameters. What can we say about the fluid pathway? Well, what we can say straight away is we know there's a source because we've got all sorts of gold deposits in the terrain. Even in the 1890s, there were prospectors all over this terrain finding gold deposits. By about 1905, a whole series of gold deposits have been found. So we know there's a source. We don't have to worry about it. And we know from what I've been telling you that once we've got 1 or 2 gold deposits, we know the whole belt has got potential. That's the key with this sort of deposit. So we can then look at fluid parameters. So we can come back here. We can look at these big fault zones, for example. They're our fluid pathways that we're interested in. And we can make a sort of geophysical image. We can say distance to the crustal scale faults. So where it's dark, that's where the fault is. We're buffering that out a few kilometres. Where it's pale, we're furthest from the fault. So you can see where the faults are. We can see how far away we are from the colour. And we can see a lot of the gold deposits lie on the faults, but some of them don't. Right? They lie off. You can already see from this diagram, the yellow is the gold. You can see there looks to be a corridor of gold deposits across there. There's gold deposits down here. They're on the fault, but there's a zone of gold that you can sort of see through there. There's possibly another one there. There's gold deposits in the fault. Again, you see this sort of cluster. There's a big gap through there, there's nothing. There's a bit of a gap through there, there's nothing. And down here, there's nothing. So there are some sort of cross corridors where the gold is being